Hi, Lucinda. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I am jealous of your hair color because I don't think I've ever done that color and it's fantastic. How did you get to that color?
You should do it. Well, okay, so I was at some point like a real redhead, and
Okay.
then and then I was like, I want to put an exclamation point on the top of my face, and I want my hair to be like red or like orange.
Right.
So this is a result of like years now of just like putting in orange, putting in red, and
All the
just
fashion colors. Those
oh yeah,
fashion colors. Red and orange combination fashion colors. That's
exactly.
fantastic. When did you start doing the red and the orange?
Oh my
How long
gosh,
ago?
it must have been. You know what? It was the beginning of the pandemic,
Okay. All
which
right.
actually feels like it's been longer than that
Yep.
because you have to do it so many times because it's like semi-permanent color, you know.
Sure.
Uh, but I think it was like, it was sort of a feeling of like I might like I have to do something. Like I need
Something
to like
different.
yeah, yeah.
I love
Like I
the
need
exclamation point. Like, I want an exclamation point on my face.
yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah. It helps with confidence and just sort of like, why not?
You're a rock star, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
So we met online and you had posted what got my attention was you had posted about women leaving the workforce in droves. So I like to share a fun fact. Here's the fun fact I found, which is from Human Resource Executive. I'm looking over here because it's on my other monitor. So the statistics are stark. More than 5 million payroll jobs held by women were lost in 2020. More than 5 million. I don't know that that's necessarily a fun fact. It's maybe a depressing fact.
but it's important. Yeah, yeah. Whoa, that's even higher than I think I've heard, which is
Yeah, well, and it says of those women, nearly 2.5 million left the workforce entirely in the last year.
yeah,
Just in the month of December, women accounted for a stunning 100% of job losses. Women of color reflected disproportionately in all of these numbers.
absolutely. That's totally
This is
true.
scary, right? It's really scary.
Yeah,
Well, maybe it's scary. Maybe it's maybe it's good. Maybe it's good that we're shaking shit up and we're doing something different.
yeah.
What's your story? I mean, you said bye, right? I think that was part of what attracted me to your post. So what's your
Yeah.
story and what's your journey right now?
Well, I was definitely forced to make that decision to leave my job um,
Okay.
because my father got sick. He had a stroke, and
I'm sorry.
I
This was
think
last year during the pandemic?
this was actually before. This was in 2018, so sort of like
Okay.
right before, sort of.
Okay.
Um, and I was the only person who was there to assume responsibility for his care. I mean, he had dementia, aphasia, which means he
Mm.
couldn't speak. And he was going through a divorce at
Oh
the
my
time,
gosh.
with not my mom, but with so. And I have siblings that they didn't show up, and this is very common for women. Extremely common for women to take on the caregiving role.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep. I've done it
yeah,
too.
really.
Yeah, I did it. So when my grandfather was in the hospital, this was years ago. It was not recent. Before my grandfather was in the hospital, he cared for my grandmother. She was bedridden, And so there's nobody to take care of her. And I was taking care of her, working full time, taking care of the house. So I get it. I totally get it. And when people say caregiving is one of the toughest things you can do, for sure it is. For sure it is.
Absolutely. And I don't know how you did a full-time job and took care of two people.
Well, I only took care of her. He was in the hospital, and it was like it was for 5 weeks, but it was it was one of the toughest things I did for 5 weeks.
Yeah. Well, so what happened was I couldn't leave my father's side. I mean, and I wouldn't, but I also couldn't, even though
because he needs 24/7 care.
Yeah, and I needed to make decisions like about, do not resuscitate type of decisions.
Oh my gosh.
I'm still caring for him. He actually lives with me. But anyway, so I had to be there to make those decisions and also like protect him from his divorce. I mean, and I had a job at the time that I loved, and I didn't know, I was really young, in years and also in, spirit.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to advocate for myself, but I mean, hello, my job, basically they saw caregiving as a personal problem, and
many do.
Yes.
Many do still. That's the problem.
Right. Is that they thought it was a personal problem. I was letting my personal life, affect my job performance. And so they were like, you can't stay by your father's side and keep your job, and so I was forced to choose. And that's what happens to so many women. And during the pandemic, we were all hit with caregiving, by the millions, and we weren't prepared, and millions of women just dropped out of the workforce to take care of those responsibilities.
And so some were forced out, right? So that's part of it. So some were forced out because their jobs went away, right? And then others, they're trying to juggle taking care of their kids, the home, their partnership, and it's not and not being and also being a teacher, right? Yeah. Oh, by the way, you need to be a teacher, right?
By the way, a full-time teacher. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and then, I don't know about you, but I think some of the folks that I've talked to, in a lot of ways, the pandemic was a blessing because they recognized that other things were more important than the work.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And,
which is, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and so then they made the choice. They either someone made the choice for them because the job went away, or they couldn't juggle all the balls, and so they're like, okay. So I think I read, I can't remember who. I should remember who the order. There was an article about juggling plastic or glass balls, and so the glass ones, if you like that, your father, it was a glass ball. Your job is a plastic one, and so that'll bounce. But the glass ball with your dad, that if that drops, that shatters.
He will shatter. That's such a good metaphor. That's perfect.
Yeah, I think Kristen. I'd have to go look, and I don't remember her last name. That's so bad. But I'm on her blog, and she was using that analogy, which is fantastic. So, what's happening with you now? So now you made that decision. As many have had to make that decision, or it was made for them. And what are you doing now? What are you doing now?
So I started an app and a platform for other young caregivers, family caregivers. Basically, what happened is, I felt like, what is wrong with me that I'm, 30 and, taking care of my father. I thought this was something that happens when you're already retired.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But then I thought, well, this has to be happening to other people, particularly young women. And so, of course, I found out there are millions of millennials, especially, who are taking care of sometimes, ill or aging parents and children.
Yeah.
And there's just, I could not find any support. I could not find anything that was geared toward me. I couldn't find anything that was like, this is how you financially, continue your life after this. So I thought, I just have to make it. So I just made iAlly as a platform to unite all of us. And I thought, well, if we can't count on the government or the healthcare system or whatever, then, or our own, families, then we can at least count on each other.
I love that.
Yeah, we can come together, and like, there's so much power in that, in being like, this is my story, this is who I am, this is what my circumstances are, and taking away any like stigma, or somehow there's shame and stigma around having a sick relative, which doesn't make any sense to me, but it's true. And we're really undervalued and sort of invisible, and that's why it's seen as like a personal problem, in the workforce. But the truth is that it's a society problem. It's, all of those 5 million women who left the workforce. I mean, that is not good for our economy. That is not good.
Oh, I don't know. What's interesting about that. So let's play on this a little bit. Based on your experience, you've created something beautiful for other people. And so I think there's a possibility that this creates endless opportunities for others based on these circumstances. Yours is a really good example of that, I think.
I hope if that is like, I think that is beautiful. And I think that would be like the best thing.
I think so.
And you know what? It's possible. It's possible.
It is
because
possible.
I think the first step is taking, like me, for example, taking that that sort of shame of losing my job and turning it into, this is, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, you made an opportunity out of it, I think, is where you probably were going, is that you made an opportunity out of it where there was nothing, and you saw that you weren't getting help in this space. You're like, don't other people have this problem? I mean, so you've created something as a byproduct of the shame of all right, I had to close this down and I'm taking care of my father. But now you have iAlly, which is it i-ally.com or iAlly altogether?
It's i-ally.com.
Okay, good. I'm going to put that in there so people can find that. And Daniel said, great thing to touch on. Daniel, tell us, you're watching, so tell us, you said great thing to touch on. What thing do we touch on that you want to know more about? Tell us more, Daniel. Oh, that's fantastic. So this is my next question. So we know that women are leaving for either by their own accord or through job law. The job was cut, or they had to leave because of caregiving reasons, or maybe something else entirely. But those are two of the bigger, heavy hitting reasons. Now they're retooling. You did retool. How did you retool? And what were the steps or the strategies or the techniques that you used to retool based on the circumstance?
I
know that's a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I remember what I was going to say now is that
good.
Is taking that shame away so that it's, instead of feeling like, oh, now I'm going to have this gap on my resume, or, this doesn't count as anything worthwhile. That taking that away, because the time spent caregiving, teaching, like you said, all of this labor that women have been doing, it is labor, and it should go on our resume, and it counts, and it makes
it does count. Yes, it does count. That's right. It is work. It is work, right?
Yes.
And love wrapped up.
Please, for anyone would be lucky to have a woman who's been a caregiver.
Yeah. So Daniel said, just center yourself and feel deep, and it will come to you. Like you mentioned, it's best we come together. And so I think that's what he's touching on, that there's an opportunity where you've created something to come together, and which you could have been alone or by yourself. And so now you're creating a mechanism where whether other people in the same position can be supported. So
absolutely.
Step one is setting the shame aside. Have you read Gifts of Imperfection by, I think that's is that Brene Brown, or I think that's Brene Brown. Gifts of Imperfection. She does a lot of shame stuff. I'm pretty sure that's her book. So setting that aside. Did you read that or not? Have you read that?
No, I've read other stuff from her. She's amazing.
Okay. She is amazing. So what would be the second step for people as far as setting the shame aside and retooling? What would be a second step for them, or strategy?
I think coming together, like
Daniel said. Thank you, Daniel.
Yes. So that
gaining support.
Yes. And then, feeling fortified, like I know what to say. I know how to advocate for myself. Like I know how to, you don't feel like you're existing in a vacuum,
Yep. So either finding a community or creating one like you did. I mean, if there isn't, you look for one and you didn't find one, you're like, well, tell me this, I'm going to make one.
Yes. And you can do that. And there's so much stuff online. I mean, you're going to be, if you're caregiving, you're busy. Very busy, but I mean, get support and take a class online. There are tons of groups, like just women's groups and professional groups. And I mean, there's so many women now who are looking for employment and advocating for good employment.
Mhm.
And a lot of companies are having a hard time hiring right now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
it's the growth, I think you're suggesting, is create a learning path or grow in the area that you're interested in, so you can then retool towards that, whatever that may be, whether it's building a business or whether it's your career. It's creating your learning plan or some type of growth in order to get there.
right, like I feel like I don't have the right to tell, I feel like I'm not like an expert on retooling, even though
But you've done it though. Why? You may not be an expert, but you've been there, you've done that, and people want to hear about real stories. You don't know who you might impact through this conversation. We don't know who we might impact through this conversation.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that I felt energized somehow, and I think that was a mixture of like, now I can focus on something I really like. Now I can start telling my story, which I started to do by just writing.
Yeah, and you're showing up here.
Yeah, just latching on, just like being in the moment and telling the truth, because oh my God, it's so powerful. And people don't, I think most people, and probably most women especially, feel like their story isn't interesting or important, or like no one cares or wants to listen, but that is so not true, and that's what you
totally
just said to me.
Right.
That's right.
That's right. I was interested. I mean, so when you posted that, I'm like, oh, I would love to have this conversation. I would love to have this conversation because your story, there's other people that it will hit. It's going to resonate. And Daniel said, I'll email. I emailed you. It'd be great to chat. So I'm not sure if he's talking about emailing me or emailing you, but either way, we'll talk to Daniel at some point. But I mean, the bottom line is your story is going to resonate with someone. And it's going to add value because they're going to say, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And Lucinda did it. Maybe I can do it too. And then I can do something that's meaningful and purposeful and still take care of my family.
Yes. And that there is value in that is relevant to our society. Like people deserve to be paid for that, for helping others. And that's a service. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic conversation. I thank you so much for having it. And I think that those tools and strategies are huge. It's huge. I mean, and so, for those that are watching now or going to watch later, they can contact you at i-ally.com, right? And that is, if they're struggling with finding a community to gain support for caregiving, that's what you're doing. And you might be able to offer some assistance or feedback on how to retool because you've been there, and we could do it too, but either one of us could help somebody, right?
Absolutely. It's all, because it's all about these things are not personal problems. They are society problems, and we need to come together, all of us, to figure out how to fix them.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Any final comments that you have for folks watching now or later?
I think the most important thing always is there's power in vulnerability, which I first heard from RuPaul,
Okay.
whom I love. There's power in vulnerability. So just don't be afraid to be vulnerable and tell your story, stay in your truth, tell your story, because no doubt someone else is experiencing it, which is exactly what you said as well. So
thank you for telling your story today, my dear. I really appreciate it.
Having me.
Yeah. This is so fun. This is so fun. I love meeting you and your beautiful exclamation point face.
Thank you.
I'm never going to forget that. That's fantastic. Oh, man. All right. We will talk to you soon, and you have a fantastic day.
Thank you.